The Bosnian War is 30 months old. 200,000 plus lives have been lost. As the United Nations and NATO continue to struggle to find a solution, French intellectuals have propelled the war in Bosnia to the center of domestic political debate there. Philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy has spent much of the last 2 years working on the cause of the Bosnian Muslims. He and his co-screenwriter have completed Bosna, an investigative account of the war-torn city of Sarajevo. The film opens next week, and I am very pleased to have him here. Welcome.
Thank you.
It is good to have you here. Why'd you make this film? What do you hope to achieve?
I had two aims, two goals when I made it. First goal was to explain. There are so many misunderstandings and ignorance about this Bosniak war. One example, people often say Muslims of Sarajevo. They must know, and some know, but all don't know, that in Sarajevo there is not only Muslims, there is Muslims, Croats and Serbs also. Sarajevo is one of the European cities, the more cosmopolitan, multi-ethnic of the whole Europe, and it is that reality which is being killed today by the barbarity of the Serbs. So I wanted first to recall that. Second thing, I wanted to show the war. This war, which is one of the most cruel of the post-Second World War after 1945, this war has not been so much shown. We did not want to see it. You, American, we, French, don't want to see this war because we know that it is a real one. It is not a fake war. It is not a synthetic war. It is not a video game. It is not a war without dead, like we like now wars, like in the
Persian Gulf,
in the Kuwait, in the Gulf. We hoped that the time had come now of new wars without dead, wars with computer. This one is not a war with computer. It is a war with blood, a war with flesh, a war with children, like my children, like your children, who have the head broken off. I wanted to show that.
Clearly, the leaders of France and Britain and Russia and the United States know that.
Of course.
They have failed to act.
Yes, I think it is even more complicated or simple, I don't know, and scandalous than that.
More scandalous.
More scandalous, yes. I think that the leaders of the big powers since the first day decided that the Serbs should win this war. It is terrible to say that, but after 2 years of inquiry, of investigation, I was led to this conclusion. They decided that the Serbs should win this war. Why? Because they have an analysis, which I can sum up very quickly. The analysis is that this area of Europe is an area of chaos, of disorder. First point. Second point, that this disorder was...
It's been a breeding ground of war before.
Yes, that, of course.
From the chaos.
Of course.
And from the conflict.
Of course. But since 5 centuries, these people of this area lived in a rather good intelligence and in peace before 1940. So, first, chaos. Second, they think that this chaos has been mastered only under the rule of a master, of a big policeman. The Turkish has been this policeman, the Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm. The Austrian has been this policeman. Habsburg. The Tito, the communist, had this policeman role. And they thought, Mr. Bush thought, Mr. Clinton maybe thinks, Mr. Mitterrand thinks that the Serbs, Milosevic, is the one who today can play the role again. The same role as the Turkish.
There is so much ethnic conflict in the former Yugoslavia, you were saying, in the Balkans, you were saying.
In Bosnia. Except in Bosnia.
Where there is ethnicity of people of different ethnic backgrounds living side by side in Sarajevo. Let me finish my question. You are believing that Francois Mitterrand, who you know well, and who you have tried and argued and tried to bring, and Michel Rocard and others who you've changed his mind on the embargo, but you are believing that President Clinton and John Major and Boris Yeltsin and others believe that ethnic cleansing and the brutality and the horror of what's happened in Bosnia was necessary price to pay to have, or an acceptable price to pay, to have a strong man who would somehow clamp down the conflict.
Exactly. François Mitterrand told me once, after many conversations, we had half dozen conversations about Bosnia. He told me, but listen, what is this ethnical cleansing? Do you know what happened in French history? Do you know the price of blood that we French had to pay to become a nation? This is the story of nations. And if the building of a big Serbian nation and a big Croat nation needs that, we'll have to pay this price. Mitterrand, in the depths of himself, thinks that.
Here's what else they will say. Go ahead.
And in America, I don't know what they think, but in the film, there is proofs from Roy Goodman and from George Kenney, the former member of the State Department.
State Department who left over protest of the American
Exactly. Policy. They say in the film that there was a deliberate censorship of what happened in Bosnia under Bush. The Bush administration did not want to know, which means that by advance they accepted the ethnical cleansing and so on.
I think they know. I mean, I think they know what's going on, and whatever censorship hasn't worked, there's too much attention there. They make these two arguments. One, is it in the national, I'm speaking of America now, is it the Clinton administration has had to deal with this argument, is it in the national interest of the United States to do something? Not to send American troops, because no one's asking for that. Two, can we have an impact? Can we make a difference without sending men and women in there to fight? And three, why is Bosnia so different from what has gone on in Rwanda and what may be going on in former republics of the former Soviet Union? And how do you decide which place the stakes are so unique that you will go in and use the full force of your power?
The film answers to these three questions, I think. First question, is it the national interest of America to intervene? I say yes, because now you will see the example of Bosnia. All around former communist Europe, there are some men, some little dictators who were watching at what was happening in Bosnia and taking lessons there. They were watching, will Karadzic succeed? Will Milosevic succeed to change the border? If he succeeds, we'll do the same. And we'll do the same.
If he can get away with it, I can.
And maybe also with atomic weapons. Zhirinovsky in Russia has an eye since the beginning to this situation. He's learning if it is possible or not for a mad nationalist to break the borders and break the order of the area. So I think that
But he doesn't have power, though.
He does not have now.
Yet.
He will have tomorrow. Zhirinovsky is not only a clown. Maybe there is an underestimation here of, and in Europe it is the case, in France, we underestimate Zhirinovsky. It is a mistake. He is the most powerful today political man in Russia. He has the support of a big part of the former state appareil and so on, and the people.
You can get into a debate about that, whether his power is declining or not, but stay with the notion
this
of
is
why pick Bosnia. Let's assume it's in the national interest.
First, for this reason.
From a moral and ethical, but that's...
Let's forget 1 minute the morality and ethical reasons. I think that for political reasons, for self-interest, we should have intervened in Bosnia for two reasons. The one I just said now, because it is a terrible example for all the area. And the second reason is that Bosnia is not only people, it is also an idea of nationality, an idea, a conception of citizenship. And if Sarajevo falls, it is this idea which will die too. Maybe we don't want to build Europe, I don't know. But if we want to build Europe, if we want a liberal Europe and not a Europe based on the principles of ethnical groups and so on, then we should have saved Sarajevo. These are the two reasons. First, because example, and second, because there is a certain idea of Europe which is embodied in Sarajevo, the two reasons why we should have...
But as soon as you say that, there are people in Africa say, see, you care more about Europeans and Europe than you do about people dying in Rwanda, where you have people of different ethnic tribes killing each other.
Yes, of course.
And that's racist.
I don't say that we should not have intervened in Rwanda, of course. I don't say that. And it is a national problem in France, the question of Rwanda, because not only we did not do, but we helped the killers, as you know. The French government gave, at the same time...
protection.
Yes, at the same time, during the same period, we refused to the Bosnian people weapons, and the same weapons we gave them to the killers of Rwanda, which are the Hutus.
Right.
This is the French policy today. So I'm not saying that we should have intervened in Bosnia and not in Rwanda. I say that it is the same problem.
So are you saying that it is the responsibility of the United States and Britain and France and Russia and other developed countries with armies to intervene wherever there is genocide taking place? It's the responsibility to stop it and to set a principle and to fight for the idea that a civilized world will not accept it.
I think first that it is a big mystery and impossible to understand why we did not do it in Bosnia, because it was your third question. It was not so difficult, much more easy than in Kuwait. I show in the film, I think, what is this powerful Serbia which frightened us so much. Bad soldiers, bad command, without une armée démoralisée, demoralized army. This was this very frightening Serbian. And second point, I think that when the mondial order is threatened, or when there is...
the moral order.
Yes.
The moral order.
Yes. When there is a threat of genocide somewhere, of course, we have a duty of intervention. Of course. Yeah. There is a new principle which has been introduced.
Wherever the moral order is threatened, we have a duty of intervention.
Wherever there is a risk of genocide, we have the duty to intervene. We have much more the duty in Rwanda or in Bosnia than in Kuwait.
Let me express an idea that is constantly has been given prominence in America since the Vietnam War, and remembering that there was Indian food before there was a Vietnam War. It is this notion that leaders should not commit American troops and American men and women to risk their lives where there is not the public support for the policy that they fight for, and that there is no overwhelming public support in your country or in my country to do anything. Now, that may be a failure of leadership because leaders have not articulated what the stakes are, but that's the reality. There is no movement in America to do something about Bosnia.
It is even worse. In my country, in France, there is a public opinion movement there was in favor of intervention. The public, yes, in the sondage, in the polls, the majority was in favor of intervention. But it is worse than you say, because what I mean is that the very idea of the war has become nearly unthinkable, impossible to think. This is the situation of today. Yeah. Our civilization is unable now to defend its values and unable to take the risk of die to defend its value. Who risks his life today in Bosnia? The journalists risk their lives every day. The humanitarian staff, the French doctors and the Oxfam and so on, all the humanitarian organizations risk their lives. The TV crews risk their lives, and the soldiers have the order, the order not to move.
Let me
they
come
put
to one.
blue helmets.
All right, here is the big question right now that's right on the edge. A couple of things. One is lifting the embargo about supplying the people defending Sarajevo. The United States Congress wants the president to go to the Security Council and get it done and lift that embargo. The Security Council. The French are against it.
Mm-hmm. And they were against in the beginning.
Now, their argument, I guess, is because they may have UN soldiers on the ground, or whatever their argument is, or because it's going to prolong the war.
It's completely mad. It is the first time in the history of armies that we say that we cannot intervene because we have already soldiers.
Yeah, because it'll risk the lives of soldiers already there.
Okay, but what is the use of soldiers if it is to prevent the army to intervene?
Well, the argument we made...
It's absurdity. About the lifting of embargo, it is not an aim as itself. It is not an aim as itself. Maybe it is necessary to lift embargo, maybe not. Today, the position of the government of Sarajevo is to say, as you know, that it is maybe not the right moment for many reasons. The main reasons being that I think that they receive already weapons, and from America maybe, and not only.
Have French intellectuals lost their power? Are they impotent today to influence power?
I don't know if they lost their power.
There's a great tradition of Moreau and the Spanish Civil War.
What I can say that there are in France many intellectuals, or a few, who try to be not too much infidel, not too much far from the example of Malraux and so on and so on. I did this film because of that too, because I feel as the son, the inheritance of this tradition. Are we heard or not? I don't know. I think that today the cowardness general is so hard that maybe nobody could be heard about Bosnia.
And there's some fear of war, in a sense, too, that is out there. I'm out of time. Do you have then nothing but contempt for your president?
I had a lot of tenderness and friendship since a long time, much before he became president.
I got 30 seconds.
Today, I have a little contempt. And in the movie, as you know, there is a proof that he lied. There is a face-à-face with the president of Bosnia and him about the existence of concentration camps. Mr. Izetbegovic says that Mitterrand knows, Mitterrand denies, and Mitterrand lies.
I'm very pleased to have you on this broadcast and to meet you. Thank you for coming very much.
Thank you.
The film is Bosna. It can be seen. It was at the New York Film Forum, and it will be released nationwide after the New York run, which begins on October 12th. We thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. See you then.